Yo, people, welcome back to the channel. You already know what time it is. It's time for another special collab. It's been a while. It's been like over a year, actually, I think, since we had Mr. George Benson on the channel. And it's an absolute pleasure because we've got some big topic that I'm not going to lie, I created for myself, okay? I cheated, okay? Yeah, you caught me. I created it. I created my own topic by causing my own drama, and now I'm reacting to it. Mr. George Benson, how are you doing? Welcome back into the building, bro. It's great to have you.
It's really been a year. Like it's that long. Damn, and that means we're live live right now, aren't we?
Well, I've pre-recorded, but you know when they watch
okay. I thought
like
this is being streamed direct.
But when we did it, it was live, and it was literally you were one of my first like 5 guests on my channel, which I really appreciate, of course. And yeah, it's been like a year and a couple, maybe year and 3 months actually. Yeah, it's mad.
Wow, that's a bit worrying because I thought it was just like 6 months ago. But I've seen your tweet, mate, and I've also seen the replies. I've seen the likes too, which is like, you know, there's balance there. There's enough likes to it as well as the responses. I'm excited to dig into this one, but I'll let you introduce it.
Yeah, I mean, I was having a little fun game with myself, just saying the retweets to the quotes, because I feel like when you make a tweet these days, if you've got a lot of quotes, that usually means you're being cooked and dragged by the community. And I just about managed to keep the retweets to the quotes at a respectable level, but the tweet was as read for anyone that didn't see the tweet or on the thumbnail, as it will be unpopular opinion. So I started it, you know, just to state that this is not going to go down well. You know, I set myself up. I wouldn't renew Kante or Jorginho's contracts expiring in 2023. May as well start building the future midfield now. 2 of Tchouameni, Rice, Basuma, or that profile as replacements. Gilmore is my Jorginho from 2023 onwards in terms of responsibility and possession. That was my tweet. It did go down. I'm not going to say well or badly. It just went down. A lot of people reacted to it. I had to mute that after like 2 hours. I was like, all right, cool. I've explained my point of view enough times. I let people have at it. What was your initial response, I guess, to that in terms of losing 2 key players like that, whose contracts are expiring next summer, not renewing them? What would be your reaction?
You know what? Obviously, because we're both so heavily engrossed with Chelsea, not just for the love of it, but because of work as well. For that, I immediately had like an entire flood of different hypotheses that I could have run with. But the first one was my concern is about how many defenders don't sign a contract. So therefore, in the summer, as much as like we get the whole Tuchel's going to be backed saga scenario, whatever you want to know it as, until it's actually been happened, I call it a saga. It's a dream. It's a pipe dream. But when you first read that tweet, you're thinking, all right, blimey, well, this is going to be based off of the idea that all of the defenders stay, right? And we don't even need to worry about that position anymore. So the club don't need to like faff around and ah about buying a defender. But to sell both of them, it tells me that there's a lot of things that have gone in our favour before we can even consider that. So,
not even to sell both, just to not renew them. So you can
not renew them.
Yeah. So
you would let them run down, so you could have it for a year.
Yeah. So like you got 2 summers, say 2 summers and a January. You're not renewing them. You have the option to sell in the summer, or you can keep them for an extra year, or you can sell next January, or you can let them go for free. Either of them, but just not to renew. So anything can kind of happen there. It's mad.
Yeah. You know. Well, okay. You want to go straight in and argue this? Because I can argue both sides to this one, I think.
Go for it. Go for it. Whatever side you want to take. Obviously, my opinion's there, so go for it. Whatever side in terms of the disagreement on it, in terms of it as well.
Well, first of all, I'll agree with you and give like my brief as to why I would agree with you. I think that within both players, there are obviously massive leadership, massive qualities that both of them have, but I think with both players at this point in their careers, there's also a massive potential problem that I think is always just around the corner. With Kante, you've got the fact that he is like one little roll of the little toe away from being out injured for 3 months. And I think the way that he's been his whole career and the way he's kind of like an all in or nothing kind of player has kind of led to this point where like he's 30 odd years old now. And of course, he's going to start picking up these little niggles that keep him out. He's only playing 50% of matches. So that's the issue with Kante, and I don't see that getting any better. You know, I don't think a player of his kind of ilk has got the capability to like actually get older and then become more durable. I don't think that is what Kante's going to be. Yeah. With Jorginho, there's always going to be, as he gets older, that pressure from his agent. He's Italian. There's been no surprise that he wants to go back there and keep playing in Italy. And especially after winning the Euros too, I feel like maybe even last summer it would have been a thought on his mind, you know? And that for me is enough reason again to just be like, well, yeah, he might renew a contract, but does that mean he's even going to stay? Like, is there any point? Are we just going to be paying him a loyalty bonus for him to then, you know, have these comments come out from his agent and be like, oh, you know what, Chelsea, like, don't worry about it. We've won everything together. It's been nice. We got over that little Sarri hump, and now I'm going to go now. Ciao, Bella. So that could easily happen too. So I think with both players, I could really see a good reason why Chelsea wouldn't renew both contracts, because I think in this position, we know we're going to have cover for a while. You've got players like Conor Gallagher, who are undoubtedly going to be top players. Mason Mount, who we don't know how he's going to mold in terms of what position he's going to be best in for the prime years of his career. And then you've got the likes of, you know, Ethan Ampadu, Billy Gilmore, who could also do a role there. And I'm not saying that these guys are going to come in and replace all of the qualities that a Georgie and an N'Golo have. But there is two very solid options that I know that you've entertained the idea of as a result of this tweet. Yeah. Who are not only, I think, brilliant mold for Chelsea Football Club, but I also think, you know, we're not going to, even if we sell Jorginho and Kante this summer, we're never going to get anywhere close to the kind of money that a Tchouaméni and a Rice as a combination are going to cost. Yeah. But I certainly think you kind of cleanse, in a sense, to like, you know, like when you check out your hotel rooms, cleaner comes in, gives it a good old clean, it looks spanking new.
Spanking new, exactly. Yeah.
And there's not many clubs who could have the luxury of being able to just be like, yep, see you later, J5, see you later, NG, but now look at the Rolls Royce that just pulls up on the driveway. And I think Declan Rice and Tchouaméni are just so perfect to replace those two players that I can agree with you, mate. I'm not going to be one of those guys getting my keyboard out and giving you a load of crap on the little blue bird.
Do you know what it is as well? Is like you stated, it's like the two players are almost a complete opposite in a way, because a lot of people that disagreed would say Jorginho, he's actually the one with the longer shelf life because he doesn't rely on his mobility, and he's obviously a player that is obviously looking to keep the ball and not really stretch himself across the pitch, whereas Kante's the complete opposite and he's all about mobility. But then some people will say Kante's the better player. He's world class. He's indispensable. He's the one that is generational. You've got to keep him. And Jorginho is replaceable because he's just not as good as Kante. And for me, I kind of just bamboozled everyone by going both of them, because as you said, like, Kante is injury prone. His influence for me will drop off. And I think by the time 2023 comes around next season, I think even this season in the Premier League, both of them haven't been anywhere near as good as Cover. So it may be just in terms of foresight, they are dropping off just a little bit in terms of their influence. We're obviously, in the grand scheme of things, 16 points behind Manchester City. So we're not competing for the league anyway at the moment. My logic comes into this where if we do keep, for instance, both players for 2024, 2025, are those two, Kante and Jorginho, in 2024 and 25, are they better than Rice and Tchouaméni at their age in 2024, 2025? I don't think they are, because if you look at the trajectory and how much better Tchouaméni is from last season, speaking with Fabregas and the way that he's getting better, he's gone from box to box to now sitting this season. Rice has done the opposite. He was sitting, Souček was going forward. And these are just two examples. If you've got your own targets, obviously, when you're watching, they obviously apply it, the profiles, etc. But these are just the two targets I spoke about in the tweet. Rice went from a sitter, Souček scoring the goals. Now this season, Rice is going forward, getting goals, and Souček is sitting. And the key here is that neither of these players are pigeonholed. They can do a bit of everything. They remind me of the old Chelsea midfield with like Mikel, who could, you know, drive with the ball, but then was also a good sitter. Essien was box to box, but then he could also play the DM. And it is a different midfield. It is scary because people are like, well, they're two massive players for Chelsea. They're key players. How could you just dispose of them? But if we're not challenging for the league, which we're not, are we wasting time by not trying to build the league title winners for when hopefully Pep and City move on in a couple of years' time? Hopefully, touch wood, we could be set for the next decade instead of prolonging the inevitable with these players and just squeezing the sponge because we have an emotional attachment and because they're good players and they're great players. But really, we're not going to get anything substantial out of them because they're continuously declining. Is kind of what I look at there. But talk to me about what you don't like about it, because that's something I definitely want to talk about as well.
See, the thing I don't like about it is that both of them, when they're playing, are still playing at such a high level. And I think that one of the things that we've got to remember when we talk about the Premier League title race and how right now we're 16 points adrift of City, we're not even close to competing, and it's only just gone halfway through the season. The one thing I will say about that, though, is when you look at like the shelf life of Man City under Guardiola, Liverpool with Klopp, you always feel as though Guardiola's just like a 4-5 match poor run away from all of these conversations coming back out again about, oh, he might leave, he might want to do something else now. And I think that over the next 2-3 years, I do think he's not going to be Man City manager anymore. And whether that is because he'll win the Champions League and then he considers he's just done it all, I think that could well be the case. And I think when that happens, again, this is a very bold statement, but I don't think City are an established enough club without him. Okay. They're just not, you know? So I don't if Guardiola leaves City, yeah, okay, they've got a footprint. Yeah, they've got a way to play. Yeah, they've got an absolutely unbelievable squad who will have probably within a couple of years won everything there is to win. But at the same time, I don't think they would be ready to just say goodbye. Liverpool with Klopp, I also wonder what's going to happen when that majestic front three either move on or keep getting older. It's the same kind of thing, you know, Salah, Mane, Firmino, they ain't getting younger. The same way as we're talking about Jorginho, Kante. Could Chelsea even afford to replace these guys? Is it too bold? But I would say that I think with these managers at both Liverpool and City, who are quite clearly the two better teams in the Premier League right now than Chelsea, I think there is, you know, a bad run or a bad spell that will disrupt the apple cart with these two. So then when Chelsea have got a Champions League winning side with so many good young players coming through, with the ability to then buy more players, I feel as though if Tuchel stays, having these two kind of experienced players like Jorginho and Kante in that team could be exactly what Chelsea would need to go one better.
Take advantage.
And then take advantage of that. You know, instead of disrupting what we have, which is good. Like, there's no denying that these two are quality players. Yeah. Instead of disrupting what we've got, keep building, working like we're doing right now under Tuchel, and capitalize on what could be disruption at other clubs. So that would be the reason I'd say not to do it, because you don't want to have this disruption going on and then Tchouaméni struggles to adapt to the Premier League, or Bissouma isn't quite as good as we thought he would be if he comes from Brighton. You know, I think with Declan Rice, no problem whatsoever. He could walk into any team in the Premier League at the click of a finger and make them better. That's my thought on him. But I just wonder if patience right now for Chelsea could actually be just as valuable as saying, right, we need to get rid of the deadwood, spend a bit of money, build a team for the future, and we should do it tomorrow. I just wonder what the best port of call is. But again, like what I just said there requires so many things to happen that there's no guarantee it's going to happen. You know, Guardiola might stay for another 10 years. We don't know. Klopp might get Mo Salah at 35 doing a Ronaldo. We don't know. You know, like it's
up in the air. And the thing is, what you say with Liverpool is that what I do like about Liverpool is, despite only winning the one league, right, in the last 5-6 years, and obviously Leicester have eclipsed that, you know, themselves, but their scouting and the way that they replace their players as they're still there is something that's really good. And maybe there's a case to say that people will say in the comments, Matisse, we should actually already have one of these guys from last summer instead of maybe Saúl Ñíguez, who hasn't really impacted the way we would have hoped. He's obviously not going to be signed on a permanent. Maybe we should have signed one of these two guys last summer to bed in, like you're saying, with these older guys. You look at Jota for Firmino, Diaz for Mane, you know, Konate for Matip. They continuously bring in these younger players before the older players go, so they can bed them in the first season. There's no pressure to be a constant starter. You're healthy competition. You're learning the league. Diaz didn't play against Burnley at the weekend because it's just Burnley. It's not the right fixture for him. He's only just come over. It's too fresh. Whereas Chelsea would probably have to start a Diaz against Burnley because we've signed him for right now. We need him to perform immediately. But with this tweet, there is a little bit of room for maneuver in terms of, like you said, the windows is there's 3 windows. There's 2 summers and 1 January. If you was to maybe move one of them on in the summer and then one of them on next summer, then you're not losing them all completely at the same time. My point with this is that as much as they could definitely, and we're going to talk about the contract and the rule that the club have, the so-called rule that they have, and how that would be perceived by their players and their agents. But in terms of Tchouaméni, Rice, Bellingham, even in 2023 in that summer, after Haaland leaves this season, Bellingham probably go the next summer. All these midfielders are probably going to move clubs within the next year or two, this summer or next summer. If we don't capitalize and get at least 1 or maybe 2 of them, they'll go elsewhere. And then we might find ourselves in a situation where the quality in the midfield or the quality in midfielders in Europe is just not as good, or they're already at big clubs and we can't get them out of the big clubs. And then we do get that extra couple of years with Kante and Jorginho, but we're not winning the league or we haven't won the league. And then suddenly it's like, maybe we do in your case, but if we don't, then it's like, oh God, now we're really screwed because now we really need to get rid of them. They're over the hedge, and the targets that we have are also at other clubs, because I just don't see these senior players competing. And I guess that's the next point. Do you see Kante and Jorginho being players that can be, less, pivotal figures in the squad in terms of dropping into rotational options in the future? Or do you think they're going to want to be constant starters, just as a hunch?
I think it's impossible for them to be anything other than what they are now, which is key players. I think, Jorginho is 2 games on the bench away from going back to Napoli. Kante's, and again, not even just like the agents thing and the complaining. I think a lot of it is down to the fact that they are both 2 very niche players. There's not many, if any, N'Golo Kantes in the world. People could compare him to Makelele, but anyone could also argue that N'Golo Kante's created his own new role, like people say the Makelele role. Jorginho, again, like it took me a very long time to understand why people would say that this guy is even a good player. Like I was one of those guys. I'm happy to admit it. I didn't get it. Yeah. Now I do. So I think they both know that, especially with deteriorations across Europe in terms of quality, Chelsea might look at them and say, oh, it's all right. Don't compete with Fabinho at Liverpool. Doesn't compete with, Rodri at Man City. So we can just bun them off. Every single club outside of the Premier League is going to look at that and think, blimey, we can absolutely snap these. It's the same as the Rudiger situation. Yeah. Chelsea want to skimp out on 25 grand a week. But meanwhile, PSG is sat there like this. Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, they're all like looking at us as if to say, are these guys dumb? Are these guys stupid? And I think exactly the same thing would happen in the case of Jorginho and Kante. I think as soon as they realise that their power at Chelsea is gone, they'll want to go. And we have seen how detrimentally bad it can be to allow players to even get that little sniff of a feeling at Chelsea Football Club. As soon as a player feels as though he is not valued the same way as he was when he was in his prime, don't matter how good the youngster coming in is, doesn't matter how good that purchase replacement's going to be, they're going to kick up a stink. We've seen it far too many times.
It's the ego of a top level athlete, isn't it? That you're the man.
And it's also like I get it. I can see why a player would be like that. Unfortunately, in our case, fortunately, and it's a double-edged sword, we've had so many big ego, big personality players that, if a player is just settling for that, you kind of disrespect him by the time he's left anyway, because he could have done so much more. But at the same time, it disrupts our apple cart. Yeah. So this is a tough one. This is a brilliant conversation.
It's tough, isn't it? Because
it is tough.
To build on what you've said, I think with Jorginho, for me, it's easier for most people to be like, do you know what, this guy, if people are saying, and they have been saying in my comments, like Jorginho's career could be prolonged because he's not, a player that relies on his speed, more on his technical ability, which I completely agree with. That means that in Italy goes tenfold. That lasts even longer in Italy, because a player like him in Italy could probably play until they're like 37, 38. People will bring up Thiago Silva, but then I'll counter that and say, listen, this is the midfield. This is the Premier League. It's the box to box. It's the engine room. It's the transitions. It's the counters. You know, Thiago Silva in the middle of a back three or even in the back four, where we're not defending all game. You know, he's a great player. And to be fair, he's one of a kind as an athlete. You know, 37 years old. No one can really name another Chelsea player that played as a starter at 37. So he's an anomaly, not something to say, well, everybody can make it till 37, etc. With Kante, I feel like because he's so quiet and he's so low maintenance in terms of you never really see him ever kick up a storm. People, I think, just assume that he's 100% going to retire at Chelsea. And, you know, that rarely happens. All of our legends didn't really actually retire here that I can remember recently anyway. Azpilicueta looks like he's going. Drogba went. Lampard went. They all went. So it's very hard to retire here. Kante on big money as well. Can I see him being a player that we only use sparingly because we're managing him, because we don't want him to get injured? We're just going to save him for the big games. I feel like Kante is, again, a guy that after his football career is done, he's not going to be a coach, he's not going to be a pundit. He wants to play all the time, I would assume. You know, he probably loves it. So again, is this a guy that over time, with his influence maybe declining a little bit, especially in a possession-based team? I think, you know, most of the obviously he's very good on the ball, but he's known for doing the stuff off the ball, covering, you know, the rest of the earth that isn't the water. That's what they say, right? And N'Golo Kante, is he going to want to play more frequently than potentially we will give him those minutes as he starts to decline? And I think the final kind of topic is very important. Is we're not like other clubs like Real Madrid. People bring up Modric to me, you know, Kroos. We only hand out 1-year deals. We've seen it with Willian. He wanted a 3-year deal. We were only really willing to give him 2. He left to Arsenal. Azpilicueta wants more years. We're not giving it to him. He's potentially going. I think Jorginho and Kante are worth more than a year contract. You know, in their own heads, they're probably like, I'm not a year-to-year guy. You know, I'm a 3-year deal player. So where's my security at the end of my career? Where's the blanket? What would you say? Do you think that would be a worry about those players maybe signing on long-term contracts, and they would want long-term contracts and we wouldn't offer them that because of the risk?
Yeah. I think the time for offering the deal is going to be now. And I don't think the deal is going to be offered simply because Chelsea won't offer what they want to accept. You know, and especially with, like you say, N'Golo Kante, there's a big point that I've not heard anyone speak about before in this context, where it's like, he is not going to go out there and become a football manager. If Kante becomes a football manager, by the way, then I might start trying to become a football manager too. Because if he can bloody do it, then I can. Because you've got to talk to people when you're a manager.
Exactly.
And like you say about Jorginho too, I think he is that kind of player who could very easily play for another 6 or 7 years with that role that he does, with the body that he has. So the more we spoke about this, the more I can actually just say, I actually do not think we're going to renew either one of these guys' contracts.
Unless we do what we did with Giroud, isn't it? Renew to sell kind of thing.
Yeah. But even then, it's like, I think with Giroud, it wasn't a case of renew to sell because we still didn't get much anyway. You know, like, it's not like it's bank breaking or bank making sums of money that we got in for Giroud. Whereas in this summer, there's going to be so many suitors for both of these players that Chelsea are in a very good bargaining position to actually be like, well, you know, you all want them. Let's see what we can do. And then you never know, you get 40 odd million for each potentially. And that's 80 million, which is like almost Declan Rice. Yeah.
I think it would be one, at least, you know, that would cover one and maybe a bit of Tchouameni as well. And this is the thing, is that as much as the discussion is about moving on, because again, it's like keeping them, do we end up, have we already seen the peak of these players? I would say so, yes. I would say last season, Champions League run, that was the pinnacle. I don't think Kante is going to go to another level unless he becomes this sitting midfielder as he gets older and maybe loses some of his speed. I always say with Kante, it's like mileage on a car. He's been running, you know, covering every blade of grass from his time in France to Leicester to now Chelsea for years on years. Never had any injuries. Now the injuries are starting to table up. Now we're starting to see, you know, drop off a little bit in influence this season. I'm just using a lot of foresight to say, kind of similar with the defenders, especially with the running out of contract. It's a good discussion to have now because it's gonna be a conversation that everyone's gonna be covering, in 6 months' time. Is it better to cash in if a good offer comes in, or even let one go for free next season and really take advantage of what is a great talent pool of young midfielders that really look like they could dominate? If you, like I said at the start, if I circle it all the way back to kind of like wrap up the show, I'll be taking Tchouaméni and Rice in 2025 to win the Premier League off Man City, or 2024, 2023 against Man City, or we taking 2023, 2024 version of Kante and Jorginho to take the Premier League to Man City. Who's the better duo? And that's the interesting question. And that's where the viewers will have to decide as well. They'll have to give me the opinions in the comments. I mean, obviously it's my opinion. So I know what I personally do. I would sell one in the summer if a good offer came in, get one DM, because I think that's realistic. I don't think it's realistic to get 2 in one window. Then I'd let the other one go for free the next summer, and I'd get the second DM in, and that would be the full rotation. What would you do? I know I'm putting you on the spot. What, after everything we've discussed, it's crazy, right? After everything we've discussed, the contracts, the agents, the money that they earn, the injury proneness, the national teams as well. They're still in their national teams, so they need to play. No one ever like thinks about that. Aspi's probably going because he wants to play for Spain in the World Cup. All of these little variables that we bring in, what do you think?
Jeez, like I was. This has got me stumped, And when we do the vid on my channel for the podcast, we're gonna carry on this conversation, I think, even more. But if I had to answer it now to wrap this up, I'm going to agree with you, but I would sell one this summer, and then I would let one go for free. And I think that embedding in period of a new young player coming into the club, but still having that quality with these two, or one of them at least available, I think it would be far too risky of Chelsea
to do both.
Just let that happen.
Yeah.
So, I sell one. And then let him bugger off next year.
Yeah, and you know what? We've
come to a fire with flipping more petrol and a fire hose today. I feel like we've thrown ourselves under the bus, but then we both pulled each other out the other side.
But we say that with a heavy heart because we love both these players. They've achieved great things.
Yeah.
But the main thing that, and again, people will bring the Fernandinho argument. Fernandinho is not playing for Brazil. He's not playing for them, and he's happy to take that. I think he got a 2 or 3 year deal at City to just be, that backup to Rodri. We only offer those 1 year deals, maybe 2. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all pans out. I think whatever happens, as long as we're still performing at our maximum, that's great. I think Chelsea as a club, they need to find some sort of solution to build some sort of structure to challenge for the Premier League, because we haven't challenged since 2017. We've won cups, and right now we're champions of the world. We're champions of the world. And we've got high standards, and we're loving it, right? We've got the Carabao Cup final to come. We're still in the FA Cup, still in the Champions League. But I remember because both of us kind of was like hoping for the league this season. I remember watching your videos. I was the same. But I feel like this season has been a massive learning curve for me in terms of, we can't just fugazi another title. We actually can't just get a new manager and just get a new title. We can't do it. Like, we tried it. We did it with Conte. We did it with Mourinho. But we actually have to sit down and really plan, and top to bottom, back Tuchel with whatever he desires, and really look at the squad for its strengths, weaknesses, foresight like Liverpool do, but also good scouting to find those gems and put it all together to put it up against Man City and Pep Guardiola, which is just an unstoppable force over 38 games. That's the difference. Chelsea on any given day can beat anyone. That's never a problem. But over 38 fixtures, that Christmas period that we keep messing up every time, we don't want to have that issue again. As players get older, injury prone again, that is not a good period for those type of players. You need those legs to get through that Christmas period. All these factors that come into it, it's going to be very interesting. This summer coming up for Chelsea is pivotal. If we get it wrong, hey, we know what comes next. So, George, let them know where to find you.
Oh, mate. What a great one this has been. Well, it's the George Benson Football Channel. For those of you that want to listen to more of this kind of stuff, but not always with the 50-50 side of things. And then Twitter, Mr. George Benson. I try not to, it's actually an absolute lie. Sometimes I wake up and I dream of violence. on social platforms. So yeah, maybe we should do this more, man. We should just be like, especially in the middle. The best ones are middle of the night. Just drop a bomb tweet in the middle of the night. Everyone wakes up. And you just set people up for it.
I enjoyed. Day. I'm not gonna lie. It was
great.
Valentine's Day, but the V stand for violence. That's what I was on. You know what I'm saying?
I can't top that. That's
what I was on. I was on a madness. I said to myself, "That's what I'm on today." I woke up. I fell out the wrong side of bed. 10 a.m. I put the tweet out and I never looked back. And it was great conversation on Twitter. Some people cooked me. Some people didn't like me for it. But if you've listened to this discussion, at least you can see where my logic is coming from. Hopefully. It's maybe taking, as I'll close, one small step back to take a step forward for the next decade. You know, that's how I'm looking at it in my head. So big up your damn selves for listening. Make sure you go and subscribe to George. Absolute pleasure having him back on the channel. It's been too long. Links in the description, in the title as well. And I'll see you guys next time. Try not to get too offended about this one. In a bit, people. Peace. Perfect.